Over 60? Discover 4 heartwarming breakfast foods to eat daily, 4 incredible ones to avoid forever. Helen strolled through her cozy Ohio suburb, leaves swirling around her like confetti, but she felt more like a ghost than the vibrant spirit she used to be. Once a vivacious teacher shaping young minds, now she wrestled with health issues that nipped at her heels like mischievous kids. It was nothing serious, just that creeping reminder of age that left her feeling trapped in a slow lane that she refused to accept, especially not when she wanted to kick it into high gear. As the sun streamed through the golden leaves, Helen made a pact with herself. She'd reclaim breakfast. No longer would she tolerate limp toast or bland cold cereal. She felt it in her bones. A hearty breakfast was the spark that could reignite her zest for life. With a flicker of excitement, she wandered into the grocery store, her senses alive with the vivid colors of fresh produce. There was something almost magical about the glimmering apples and the deep green of kale. Yet, as she grabbed a bunch of organic bananas, a nagging thought poked at the back of her mind. What was appropriate for a woman her age? A shadow of self-doubt loomed over her. Tommy, her wide-eyed grandson, was her voice of encouragement. "You can do anything, Grandma," he exclaimed as she filled her cart with an arsenal of colorful ingredients. His faith in her lit a fire that had been dimming too long. Together, they would explore recipes that made breakfast an adventurous meal once more. The creamy oatmeal topped with banana slices, luscious protein-rich smoothies, and stacks of pancakes piled high with berries became their morning ritual, a whirlwind of laughter and shared moments. But soon, curiosity led Helen down a rabbit hole of research. She unearthed colorful truths about beloved breakfast staples, glaring revelations about sugary cereals full of smiles but void of nutrients. She felt a rush of indignation bubbling up as new recipes clashed with the old breakfasts they held dear. The family table transformed into an arena of passionate debates, with some clinging to their sugary favorites, while others roared in agreement, impressed by Helen's research. It was a heartwarming disaster, as laughter flowed amidst differing opinions. Just when she thought they were all on the same page, a family cooking day turned tumultuous. Flavored chaos filled the kitchen as they chopped, stirred, danced, and laughed. But unseen challenges lurked beyond the kitchen. Neighborhood whispers began rumors about Helen's so-called obsession, sprinkled with concern and skepticism. She felt the weight of other people's judgments like a shroud over her enthusiasm. Her heart twisted at the thought, was she championing health or driving a wedge between the family? Before they could decide where to head next with all the rich traditions looming, Helen's phone buzzed with unexpected news, summoning her to the forefront of the community. A local health fair wanted her to speak, questioning whether she could shine a spotlight on her journey without dimming the light of cherished family traditions. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Facing the bubbling conflict, Helen had a decision to make. Could she find a balance? Would her love for healthy living inspire them, or would their old habits sabotage her effort? As the debate swirled, love and tension clashed like the wind rustling those autumn leaves. In that moment, the kitchen felt both alive and suspenseful. What would unfold when they gathered for the next meal? Would it be a feast of tradition or a table transformed? Helen sat in the dim light of the kitchen, the aroma of cinnamon and apples wafting through the air as she pondered her next move. Tommy was busy pulling ingredients from the pantry, his innocent enthusiasm both comforting and unnerving. The health fair loomed ahead, and the weight of her community's whispers felt heavier. Could she stand in front of everyone and lay bare her struggles, her triumphs, without tearing apart the fabric of her family? Yet, the echo of their two contrasting breakfasts lingered like an unwanted guest. She could still hear the laughter of her family mixing with the clamor of disagreement. A part of her longed for the old, familiar foods, the pancakes drowned in syrup, the sugary cereals that once brightened her mornings. But another part felt the thrill of reinventing traditions. With determination swelling in her heart, She resolved that her journey also had to include her loved ones. "What are we making today, Grandma?" Tommy's bright eyes sparkled with anticipation. "Delicious breakfast burritos," she replied, a mischievous grin spreading across her face. "Packed with veggies and protein. We're going bold today." Tommy giggled with excitement. "And can we make some with bacon?" Helen chuckled. "Of course. Balance is key, right? Let us see how we can do both." As they cooked together, laughter spilled over the chaos of chopping vegetables, each slice punctuated by their conversations. Helen felt a warmth bubble within her, but those nagging questions refused to let go. Would a plant-based breakfast burrito even resonate with anyone else? Or would they dismiss it with a sigh and reach for the butter and sugar? Just then, the doorbell rang, interrupting her thoughts. Helen wiped her hands on a dish towel, glancing at Tommy. His curiosity piqued. They both shared a knowing look. It was their next-door neighbor, Carla, who had been one of the whisperers behind Helen's back. "Hi, Helen. I brought over some muffins. I hope you don't mind me interrupting." Carla's cheery voice brightened the room, but added tension in Helen's chest. "Not at all. We're just cooking up a storm in here," Helen replied, forcing a smile while her mind raced. Whispers had turned to faces, and she felt her stomach churn. Carla peeked over the counter, her eyes landing on the vibrant colors of their veggie mix. "Whoa, what's this? Trying something new?" "Just experimenting with breakfast," Helen replied, trying to sound casual, but she could see the subtle judgment flicker in Carla's eyes. After a minute of small talk, Carla broke the ice. "You know, some of us are worried about you. All this health stuff, it's great, but don't forget about what really matters, like comfort food and family gatherings." Helen's heart raced. The words stung more than she expected. The quiet disapproval hung in the air, making it hard to breathe. Was her journey worth it if all it led to was isolation? Tommy nudged Helen's side, whispering, "But, Grandma, you said we can have both, right?" His simple reminder flickered hope through her. Maybe the solution was not just about persuading everyone to change, but also about merging old and new. With a robust voice, Helen declared, "You're right, Carla. Balance is what I aim for, lively breakfasts that keep everyone happy." Her voice wasn't shaky, it was resolute. But would that be enough to remedy the rifts forming? As Carla nodded, Helen noticed the fatigue in her eyes, a flicker of understanding beneath the surface of skepticism. Later that evening, as Helen prepared for the health fair, a mix of excitement and anxiety thrummed through her. The weight of her family's traditions collided with her new ideals, and she felt torn. It was momentous but terrifying. She took a breath, her resolve strengthening. What would she share with the audience? Could she highlight the joy of health while embracing the past? This journey was about more than breakfast. It was a chance to reshape her family's narrative as well. But as uncertainty crept in, so did doubt. Perhaps this was a precarious path that might crumble beneath her feet. Standing at the threshold of change, Helen felt the charming and wild winds of her life swirling again. The moment had arrived. Would she be able to balance the scales of health and tradition, or would they pull her apart like the autumn leaves fluttering down into chaos? The next morning dawned gray and heavy, casting a muted light that seeped through the old kitchen window. Helen wrapped her fingers around a steaming coffee mug, savoring the warmth while her mind churned with worries. Today was the health fair. Tommy rushed in, still in his pajamas, hair sticking out in wild angles. "Grandma, are we making breakfast?" "I'm starving." Helen nodded, forcing down her growing anxiety. "Absolutely. Let us whip up those burritos." They moved in a familiar dance, chopping, mixing, and laughing as sunlight crept higher, fading the gloom outside. Each slice of pepper felt like a small victory, a distraction from the noise that echoed in her head. But a new thought gnawed at her. What if the other families judged her? What if they laughed at her healthy ideals? Tommy handed over a bowl filled with eggs and insisted on adding bacon. "Like you said, Grandma, balance." His voice was filled with the kind of enthusiasm only a child could muster. She couldn't help but grin at him, her heart swelling with pride. But just as they piled ingredients into soft tortillas, the door swung open with a loud bang. It was Carla, her face set like a thundercloud. "Helen, you won't believe what I just heard." Helen's breath caught in her throat. "What is it?" "It's about the fair. There are accusations flying around. People are saying," she hesitated, glancing at Tommy before steeling herself, They say your health kick could push people away. Like, you'll make them feel guilty about their choices. The words slammed into Helen like a cold blast of wind. Guilt? She had never intended that. But that is not what I want. I just want to share something that made me feel better. Carla's expression softened marginally. I know, but you can't control how others feel. They're all set in their ways. Change is scary for them. Tommy, still listening from the counter, piped up. But it's not scary for Grandma. She loves it. His innocent declaration rattled her, a tiny beacon of her resolve shining through doubt. Helen's head spun. She needed to stand her ground. Maybe it's time for the community to hear that change can feel good, that it can be joyful. This is about health and happiness, not shame. Carla looked unconvinced. But what if they don't want to hear it? What if they turn their backs? Helen clasped her hands together, steadying herself. Then I'll have to show them joy instead of just telling them. I can't hide who I am because of their fear. The tension filled the room. Tommy swung his legs back and forth on the stool, oblivious to the tightening atmosphere, intent on tasting every ingredient they prepared. Can we just make good food, Grandma? Please? Helen's resolve crystallized. This was about more than just food. It was about connection, hope, and rebuilding trust. You're right, Tommy. Let us make something everyone can enjoy. As they finished assembling the breakfast burritos, her heart thudded with a mix of apprehension and excitement. The doorbell rings echoed again, making her jump. Who now? She murmured, wiping her hands on a towel. This time, it was another neighbor, Matthew, holding a platter of donuts, a broad grin plastered across his face. Heard you were cooking. Thought I'd bring something for you to share at the fair. Helen's stomach twisted. Donuts? The tension in the air ratcheted up once more. Thanks, she replied, forcing a smile. The moment felt charged, and Carla's eyes darted from the plate to Helen, mirroring her worry. If they brought donuts, they wouldn't even look at her health burritos. But could they share in both? As they all stood in the kitchen, the unease swirled like the sense of cooking, each mingling into an uneasy balance. Could she turn this around? What if this moment held the key to bridging the gap? The path ahead loomed before her, fraught with uncertainty. Helen felt the light flicker around her, and with it, the pull of the familiar and the fear of the unknown. Could she handle the storm brewing outside? What would it take to break down the barriers holding her community back? And as the voices of doubt grew louder, was she ready for the confrontation that was looming just around the corner? The health fair stretched out before them, a whirlwind of activity and muted conversations. Helen felt her stomach tighten as she loaded the car with the bright-colored burritos, each wrapped neatly in foil. She glanced at Tommy, his little face alive with anticipation, and clung to that fleeting joy. Are you ready, Grandma? He asked, bouncing on the balls of his feet, his excitement buoying her spirits in the face of uncertainty. Ready as I'll ever be, she replied, attempting to match his enthusiasm. As they approached the fairground, the gray skies loomed overhead, threatening to overshadow the vibrant booths fluttering in the breeze. Helen spotted familiar faces, some friendly, others wary. She could almost feel the judgment radiating from certain groups. Clusters of parents were gathered, arms crossed, whispers hanging in the air like a shroud heavy with suspicion. Look, Grandma, there's Mrs. Flint, Tommy shouted, pointing toward a neighboring booth festooned with bright fruit and gluten-free chips. Helen's heart rate quickened as they walked over, determination bubbling just beneath the surface. Hey, Helen. Mrs. Flint smiled, but her eyes flicked to Tommy, leaving a hint of uncertainty. What do you have there? Burritos. Healthy ones. Tommy beamed, practically bouncing with pride. Healthy, huh? Mrs. Flint's smile faded, replaced by a cautious line. That's nice, but you always know how people feel about that stuff. The words stung, but Helen took a breath. This isn't about guilt, it's about sharing something that made me feel good. We can enjoy food together, can't we? Suddenly, from the other side of the fair, Helen saw Carla conversing with a small group. The furrow in Carla's brow eased momentarily as she glanced their way, but it quickly returned when one of the parents turned and whispered to the others. Their heads turned, eyes narrowing as they glanced at Helen's burritos. Time to show them, Tommy whispered, squeezing her hand as they began setting up their booth. Faces turned. Some exchanged glances. Others stepped closer, curiosity warping into hesitation. Helen's heart raced like a drum in her chest. She forced a smile, her voice firm. Welcome. Come try our healthy burritos, made with love. The first brave soul approached young Emily, one of Tommy's friends. Her eyes lit up as she grabbed a burrito, taking a hefty bite. Confusion flickered across her face. Wait, this is actually good, she said, smiling widely. Tommy bounced on his toes. See, I told you. Balance. But just as hope began to blossom, murmurs erupted from a nearby group. Does anyone think she's just trying to push her views on us? Someone sneered. The ripple of laughter struck hard against Helen's resolve. She could feel the pressure building, a swell of emotions, a cocktail of anger and sadness whirling around her heart. She was about to respond when Carla emerged, stepping softly but firmly into the crowd. Wait, let us not jump to conclusions, Carla began, her voice commanding but gentle. Helen's just trying to help. But it was too late. Someone shouted, how dare she come in here and make us feel bad about our food choices? The tension rippled like the wind picking up, anxious eyes shifting toward Helen. A lump formed in her throat. They were judging her, she could feel it in every glance. Suddenly, Tommy stepped forward, clutching a burrito. You guys, these are delicious. My grandma just wants everyone to be happy and healthy. You have to try it. His innocent plea hit like a wave, washing over the tense crowd. Moments hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty, and Helen held her breath, her pulse pounding. But then someone stepped forward, a familiar face, Mr. Thompson from down the street, his expression thoughtful. What if we mix things up a bit? He proposed, his voice steadier than Helen felt. Let us embrace both worlds, Helen's healthy fare and these delicious donuts. There's room for both of us. Helen sensed a flicker of hope as voices murmured their approval. Could it really work? But just as whispers of agreement started to grow, dark clouds rolled in, literally and figuratively. A rumble of thunder echoed through the fairground, making everyone pause. Rain began to fall, fast and heavy, drenching the colorful displays. Not now, Helen thought, panic coursing through her veins. Would this be the end of her chance to connect? The storm outside mirrored the chaos within her heart. Could she really change their minds and break the barriers holding this community back? As the storm raged, would she find the courage to face the mockery and judgment be damned? With the crowd becoming restless and agitated, Helen felt the foundations beneath her tremble. What would it take to keep the conversation alive among the pouring rain? And would anyone stay to listen? The rain poured down, drenching the fairground, transforming the vibrant setting into a watercolor blur of chaos. Helen's heart raced as the laughter from the crowd was drowned out, replaced by the thundering of raindrops, each one a countdown to disaster. Faces turned from curiosity to irritation, glancing at their wet displays, at their ruined plans. Stay calm, stay strong, she whispered to herself, squeezing Tommy's hand tighter. The little boy looked up at her, his eyes wide, reflecting worry mirroring her own. You think they'll leave, Grandma? He asked, his voice barely audible over the storm. I don't know, Tommy, she said, desperation creeping into her tone. But we can't give up now. This is our moment. She took a step forward, unsteady under the deluge. Everyone, please. We can still have fun. Try our burritos. It's just a little rain. She raised one of the foil-wrapped offerings high above her head like a beacon of hope, praying that it would draw people in. But the skepticism rang out again, sharp as lightning. What good is food if we're all just soggy? A voice retorted from the edge of the crowd. A chill crept down Helen's spine. The previous fragile alliance forged by Mr. Thompson's words seemed to dissolve in the rain. People shifted uncomfortably, looking at one another for guidance. The tension thickened as everyone remained poised, torn between camaraderie and old rivalries. I'll help, Tommy declared, charging ahead into the murky puddles forming around them. He grabbed a plate of burritos, holding it above his head. Who wants to try one? A smattering of laughter erupted, mixed with disbelief, before the heaviness of the atmosphere settled back in. Helen watched as some parents shook their heads, while others watched, caught off guard by her grandson's daring charm. Then, as if on cue, the crowd began to break apart like a wave crashing against the rock, parents reluctantly pulling kids closer to protect them from the rain, while some older friends of the family edged silently toward Tommy's display. Helen tucked away her fear, focusing on the budding smile on her grandson's face that cut through the gloom. "Grandma," he shouted, the warmth of his joy cutting effortlessly across the storm. "They like it." He gestured to a group of children who were already reaching for burritos, their smiles bright even in the rain. But suddenly, a loud crack of thunder jolted everyone, and the grounding force of Helen's hope slipped once again, as a line of parents, arms crossed tighter than before, gathered ominously at the edge of the booth. "This is ridiculous. It's a health fair, not a cooking class," one woman barked, her voice laced with venom. "You think we all want to be lectured?" Helen's heart sank. They saw her attempts to share love through food as intrusion, a personal attack on their choices. She felt the walls closing in, the freedom of the fair slipping out of reach. "I'm not lecturing anyone," she said, her voice trembling, but firm. "I just want to share what's made me feel good." Each word was a firework in the storm, hoping it would spark anything in their hardened hearts. But the palpable animosity turned even more so when, in the distance, a figure approached, a familiar figure, shrouded in gray rain gear, moving with purpose. Helen's heart skipped as she recognized Carla. She hurriedly navigated through the rain, intensity in her eyes. "Carla, maybe you can help." Helen's words faded as Carla stopped short, eyes scanning the scene, and then zeroing in on Helen herself. "Why are you doing this?" "They're not ready," Carla shouted over the storm, and it felt to Helen like standing in the eye of a hurricane. Her friend's resolve paired with the judgment from the crowd sent a shiver through her. "I have to try?" Helen cried, desperation spilling over as the emotions she kept bottled up came rushing forth. "What if this is our chance? What if we really can bridge this gap?" In the moment that followed, the air thickened as if the rain had paused, holding its breath. All eyes directed toward Helen, her resolve against the storm, the gathering discontent lurking beneath the surface. Then, in the background, a flicker of movement caught her eye. It was a child, shivering in the rain, alone, beneath all the gathered adults, unshielded from the tempest that raged. Helen's heart raced. What would she do? Could she reach deeper and take a stand that might finally change their perceptions? With adrenaline coursing through her veins, she marched forward, everything inside her set on breaking through the storm of judgment that loomed. Would her decision to confront judgment help them see her heart, or would it only invite more chaos? The moment was ripe with uncertainty, and as she locked eyes with that child, she knew this could change everything or lead to her defeat. Helen's breath caught in her throat as she stepped closer to the child. The rain pelted down, a frantic percussion against the vibrant colors of the fair, but in that moment, she tuned it all out. The world around her faded into a dull whisper, and all that mattered was the frightened little face looking up at her. "Hey there, sweetheart." She crouched down, meeting the child's wide eyes. "What is your name?" "Lily," the girl whispered, shivering and drenched. Helen could see her dark curls plastered to her forehead, cheeks flushed from the cold. "Lily, can you come here with me?" She extended her hand. "You'll be warm in just a moment. I have some burritos. They're really delicious." The little girl hesitated, glancing back at her mom, who stood ensconced in the crowd, arms folded as if it were an impenetrable shield. But the soft call from Helen pulled her in. Tommy, watching his grandma with earnest eyes, ran back to her side, gripping a soggy burrito plate. "Can I help, Grandma? We can share." Of course, Helen smiled through the rain, tension tight in her chest easing just a bit. "Lily, would you like to taste one?" With a tentative nod, Lily stepped forward, her tiny hand slipping into Helen's, a lifeline in this whirlpool of chaos where vibrant joys were sucked into the gloom. But as they approached the booth, Helen felt the collective judgment again, a wave of disapproval that turned her stomach. The parents, now stewing and muttering, fixed their glaring eyes upon her. Is this really what a health fair is about? One man barked cynically. "Hey!" Helen snapped, her voice rising above the steady drumming of rain. "It's about caring for our children. You should be grateful I am sharing a taste of joy with them." A ripple of silence enveloped them, shock replacing hostility momentarily. It was the calm before the storm, and Helen realized the risk she had just taken. She held her breath as their expressions shifted and eyes narrowed with uncertainty. "Your method's unorthodox," Carla then chimed in, stepping up beside Helen, her face taut with concern and recognition of the boiling tension. But you have to understand their worry. No one wants their kids exposed to whatever you're peddling. Helen cast an incredulous glance at her friend. Peddling? She echoed incredulously. I'm peddling hope. The anger in the crowd began to swell again, manipulated by fear. The biting words slashed through the damp air, igniting resentment with each exchange. What kind of hope? Someone shot back. Hope they catch something that will keep them sick? You've lost it, woman. Stop it. Tommy cried out, his little voice drowned in the rising clamor. Can't we just eat together? Suddenly, everything halted. All eyes turned towards Tommy, the innocence of his plea cutting deeper than any adult confrontation could. Helen felt a lump in her throat, swallowing hard against the swell of fear. The storm continued to rage, but amidst that noise, a flicker of understanding sparked in some of the parents' eyes. Could they put aside their judgments for just a moment? Lily took a timid step forward, and, breaking the ice, she held out her hand toward Tommy, smiling with a warmth that echoed reassurance. The clouds above seemed to tense once more, as if waiting, holding their breath for the next move. Then, without thinking, Helen took half of her burrito and symbolically offered it out, her heart pounding. Would you like to share? She asked Lily, feeling the burgeoning bond as the two children leaned toward each other in naive trust. But just as something hopeful began to unfurl, an ominous clap of thunder rolled overhead, drowning out the moment. What was about to break? Would it be the fragile peace she just built, or could someone still step forward to bridge the divided front? Time froze, and Helen knew she had to make a decision. A decision that could either propel them into unity or plunge them back into chaos. In that moment, she caught the eyes of the parents, and the weight of their scrutiny bore down like a lead balloon. What choice would they make next? The air crackled not just with the storm, but with tension, a palpable weight pressing down on everyone. Helen's heart raced as she scanned the faces in the crowd. The harsh glare of judgment burned through the gray mist of rain, each frown and furrow amplifying her feeling of vulnerability. It was more than kids bonding over burritos now. It was about standing up against fear and hostility. Let us just share, she urged again, her voice barely cutting through the mutterings of the crowd. But doubt settled in, her grip on Lily's hand tightening. What if this was all a mistake? Would this innocent moment be swallowed by the storm brewing around them? Just as she contemplated retreating, a tall figure stepped forward from the crowd. It was one of the parents, a woman with fiery red hair and a piercing gaze. She took quick strides toward Helen, her expression a mix of determination and disbelief. Do you even know what you're doing? The woman hissed, and Helen felt her stomach drop. You're trying to play superhero in a world that clearly doesn't want it. No, Helen shot back, stepping into the woman's space. I'm trying to do what feels right. These kids shouldn't be caught in our fears. They should be eating together. Gasps echoed through the crowd, a collective gasp of surprise at her outburst. Helen's heart raced. She had spoken the truth, but it was something they didn't want to hear. What kind of future are we giving them if we can't even trust one another? She pleaded, desperation clawing at her throat. Maybe you're the one who can't be trusted. A man yelled from the back. This isn't some game. One wrong move could compromise their health. The anger began to rise again. Helen steadied her stance, wishing she had the power to peel back the layers of fear suffocating them. Thunder roared again, as if punctuating the turmoil within her mind racing, frantically searching for something powerful to say. That's the point, she finally shouted, heart pounding louder than the rain. In every bite, there's a possibility for health, for connection, for happiness. That's what hope tastes like. For a moment, silence enveloped them. Eyes flickered, uncertainty flooding the crowd as they processed her words. It was a whisper of truth amidst the raging storm. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw Lily bringing a piece of the burrito to her lips, pausing as she looked at Tommy, who was also gazing with wide, curious eyes. The act of sharing felt monumental, an act so brave for kids who often stood back watching adults decide their fate. Helen's heart could barely take the weight of that moment. One by one, parents squinted, frowns beginning to soften. Then, someone stepped forward, a young father with a hesitant smile. He reached out and took a small piece of the shared burrito from Lily. His son followed, then another mother. Hope was somehow trickling in, flooding over cracks of fear. But just as the atmosphere visibly shifted, a flash of lightning illuminated the scene, revealing a newcomer darting through the fairgrounds. A figure in a long coat with a hood that masked their face. The crowd turned again, voices low and anxious, sounding warnings that twisted Helen's stomach in knots. "Who is that?" someone gasped. Breaking the fragile moment of connection, the figure approached closer, their intentions unclear, and suddenly, every heartbeat felt like a countdown. Hope had sparked a chance at unity, but a shadow loomed, threatening to snuff it out. What did this newcomer want? And could her fleeting connection withstand the tide of chaos about to wash over them all? The figure drew closer, the night growing deeper and more ominous as the storm raged. Helen squinted, trying to push through the curtain of rain. Was it the rain that blurred her vision, or was it something more sinister? "Stand back," someone shouted, thrusting a protective arm in front of their child. A parent who had stepped back to shield their family from whatever threat this stranger might pose. A ripple of fear sliced through the crowd. "Who are you?" Helen demanded, her voice steadier than her quaking heart. The figure paused, seemingly weighing their options, as if contemplating whether to reveal an ominous truth or retreat back into anonymity. Lightning danced again across the dark sky, and for a fleeting second, the hood slipped down just enough for Helen to catch a glimpse of a scarred face, eyes burning with intensity. A gasp echoed through the gathering as the figure took another step into the faint light, revealing a scraggly beard and deep lines etched across their skin like a map littered with storms past. "You need to listen," the newcomer shouted, their voice raw and frantic. "The storm's not just weather. It's coming for all of you. I know what you're doing here, and I know what lies ahead." "Oh yeah?" a man from the crowd barked, arms crossed defiantly. "And who are you to tell us anything?" "Just a messenger," the figure replied, urgency creeping into their tone. "These moments you're spending together sharing, connecting, are fleeting. They'll vanish if you don't stand strong against what's knocking at your door." Helen felt a chill crawl up her spine, each word sinking into her gut like ice. "What do you mean? What's coming?" Her breath quickened, and she could feel Lily clutching her hand tighter awash with fear, just like her mother. The figure's gaze shot around the crowd, locking eyes with Helen again, unwavering. "You think those burritos are bringing you together? It's much deeper than that. You're standing on a fault line, you don't even see the cracks beneath your feet." The crowd murmured, uncertainty flooding the air like the pouring rain. Parents exchanged looks, as if the weight of the figure's words was sinking in. Helen's pulse raced. Were they truly blind to the rising tension in their town? The growing divide, the whispers in corners, and the distrust? "Why should we trust you?" someone asked, voice trembling with concern. "Because," the newcomer took a deep breath, eyes narrowing into slits as if sharpening their focus. "Because I've seen it all before. Whole families torn apart. A community divided, frightened." "What do you know?" Helen interjected, frustration rising. "What have you really seen? Don't just throw around fear, show us your truth." The figure stepped back, caught off guard by her boldness. The storm roared in agreement, crashing around them, and for a moment, it felt like the whole universe was leaning in, waiting for the next word. "Your truth?" the figure said finally, voice steadying. "I'll show you what I know, but it comes at a price. Are you willing?" Before Helen could answer, thunder cracked overhead, a powerful roar that echoed their chaotic emotions. Eyes darted nervously between each other. Were they ready to face whatever nightmare awaited? What dark secrets had this figure uncovered? And could they forge ahead in solidarity when the shadows loomed so large? The figures stood frozen, rain cascading off their shoulders like a shroud of desperation. With every heartbeat, the tension coiled tighter among the gathering. The crowd, shadows of uncertainty and fear flickering in the dim light, shifted in an uneasy harmony, whispering amongst themselves. "Tell us what you know," someone yelled, defiance lacing their tone, yet a hint of doubt lingered in the air like the electric charge before a storm. The word price hung heavily, echoing in Helen's mind, wrapping around her thoughts like a vine, squeezing the breath from her lungs. The figure took a step closer, their face illuminated by a jagged flash of lightning, revealing deeper scars than Helen had initially seen. Each line seemed to tell a story, a testament to a life lived on the edge of despair. "You think it's just about you. It's about your children, Your community. Do you really know what's brewing in the shadows? Lily tightened her grip on Helen's hand, her small fingers trembling. Helen's heart ached at the sight of her daughter's fear, the innocent child burdened by the weight of adult worries. She scanned the faces around her, curiosity, skepticism, fear all mingling into a storm of emotions, mirroring the tempest above. What shadows? Helen managed to ask, her voice shaky, breaking through the veil of rising panic around her. What are you talking about? The figure leaned in, voice low yet urgent. There's talk behind closed doors, meetings in the dark. You think this storm is nature's wrath? It's a signal people are making choices that can tear this community apart. Gasps echoed through the crowd, a ripple of fear surging like a wave. The man who had questioned the figure earlier scoffed. So we're supposed to believe some crazy person? Is this a joke? Look around. The figure shouted, casting an arm towards the crowd. This is not just about you being here. It's a storm of secrets, growing like a fungus in the dark. They want to separate you, isolate you. Families are at risk. Trust is at risk. Helen felt the ground beneath her tremble, not from the storm, but from the realization that something much more dangerous loomed close. The static energy from the crowd pulsated, every heartbeat an echoing reminder of the communal ties they were potentially willing to sever. What can we do? Someone whispered, a hesitance gracing their voice as the idea of agency and action flickered to life. Stand together, the figure urged, eyes fierce with conviction. You have to confront the storm beyond the clouds, the storm of division. Only together can you weather it, or it will consume everything you hold dear. A rumble of thunder shook the earth, deepening Helen's unease, the figure's words ringing louder than the storm. There was something hauntingly familiar about the warnings, like echoes of history calling them backward into old battles fought and lost. And then, the rain intensified, pelting down in a fit of fury, as if nature itself was siding with this ominous messenger. Helen felt a pang of anger mingle with indignation. What exactly do you expect us to do? March into the lioness' den? The figure's gaze softened, now filled with anguish and a sense of urgency. Sometimes, the lion just needs to be made aware of the people it threatens. You can't turn away suddenly. A deafening crash erupted as a bolt of lightning struck nearby. The ground shook violently, and screams pierced the air as panic surged through the crowd like wildfire. Helen's heart raced, each breath feeling heavier as she searched for Lily, who was wide-eyed with terror. Stay close, Helen shouted, instinctively pulling her daughter closer. The figure remained resolute, their presence oddly comforting amidst the chaos. But in the shadows, something stirred, something deeper than just a growing storm or fragmented community. The winds howled louder, but one thing was clear: the real turmoil had yet to surface. What lay hidden just below the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge? Was it truly just a storm, or was something more insidious weaving itself into the fabric of their lives? And as the crowd began to disperse, terror slipping through every crack, Helen couldn't shake the feeling that they were all being watched. The storm screamed overhead, and in the middle of chaos, Helen caught her breath as she gripped Tommy and Lily's hands tightly. The pounding rain railed against the ground, a frightening symphony that blurred their world into a haunting smear of color. Stay together. Keep your eyes on me, she shouted, her voice fighting against the growing panic. The crowd shifted, people glancing nervously at one another, some still clutching burritos while others sought safety in familiar camaraderie. Helen felt the wave of fear creeping up her spine, a chilling reminder of the unknown swirling just beyond their perceived security. She had entered this community mission with hope, armed with compassion, but how quickly the tides could turn. In that moment, the figure garbed in their drenched cloak, rain streaming down as if they had emerged from the storm itself, held steady, their voice cutting through the thunder. You all have to act now. This is bigger than you think. Helen's determination sparked anew. What do we do? She yelled, desperation turning her voice firm. How do we face this storm? The figure stepped forward, shadows pooling around them. You already have the answer, they called back, a flicker of resolve hiding beneath their somber tone. Embrace unity. You need to share not just food but stories, laughter. In those moments, trust can grow in your family and in this community. The swirling emotions in Helen's heart ignited into action. Listen. She focused on the crowd, her voice no longer just an echo of fear, but vibrant with certainty. We came together today, even in this chaos. Let us not let the storm steal our joy. We can share foods and our lives. We can open our hearts and minds to each other. Glimmers of understanding flickered across some faces, nods of cautious agreement in the squall. But doubt hung thick, like fog on a summer morning, lingering in the smoldering air. How? When we're holding on to our old ways. Someone shouted back, frustration challenged by curiosity. Was that the right question? Helen's heart raced with every ounce of her being. By accepting that both tradition and change can coexist, she replied, adrenaline pumping. Let us bring these communities, values, and dishes together. A potluck of love, if you will. Tommy tugged at her sleeve, an eager gleam in his eyes. Grandma, we can share more burritos. And what about those donuts? They don't have to be enemies. The crowd's murmur rippled, curiosity breaking through the tension. Helen saw it, faces lighting with possibility, walls faintly crumbling amidst the rain. Exactly. Together. Let us show our children how to be open, to embrace different plates at the table. The rain poured harder, but laughter bubbled up, mixing with the noise of the storm. We can create something new, someone said, stepping forward from the crowd, a fellow neighbor, once part of the whispered doubts. Let us bring the donuts, too. Why not? Yes, that's the spirit. Helen felt something shift, power unfurled through the crowd near the booth. Let us gather all our dishes. What if we create a unity table? Everyone brings something, old favorites and new surprises. Lily beamed, excitement flickering in her eyes. Can I come too, Grandma? She asked, squeezing Helen's hand tighter. Absolutely, Helen replied, feeling the energy swirl around her. Suddenly, the rain grew gentle, sprinkling them lightly, like nature itself was encouraging this new genesis. Parents began moving, clapping hands together, looking at each other with shared determination. The figure bowed their head, giving a nod, as if acknowledging the power of their plans. Let us do this, Helen shouted, igniting those around her. We can face any storm together. The murmurs turned into chants and laughs, and before long, the marketplace transformed from a battlefield of doubts into a vibrant gathering of ideas and hope. Smiles replaced fear, and connections pierced through the veil of judgment that had hung heavy before. They began gathering supplies, tearing down notions of exclusion with intentions of inclusion. Even as the clouds darkened, resolute hearts became their shield. The thrumming of the storm dwindled, replaced by the electric hum of newfound friendship and community. Thank you for reminding us, Carla shouted over the noise, her voice filled with renewed faith. Helen turned, her heart soaring. This journey had brought them all together, not despite their differences, but because of them. As the sun began to peek through the clouds, the streets full of joyful camaraderie, Helen whispered to herself softly, "We've got this." And in that moment, she truly believed it. Now let us prepare that unity table, Helen cried, allowing the unyielding spirit of their love and laughter to wash over her. This was more than a meal. They were building foundations for their future, woven together by resilience and joy. United, they laughed, loved, and lived, brighter than clouds ever could dull them. This was only the beginning. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.